Howdy, 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 howdy. So this is my fourth video in my faith journey series. So I did this series. I've had a few people recently ask me kind of about who I am, where I've come from, what my faith is. And I just felt like I needed to put it out there. I feel like there's a lot of people, or I feel like there's some people that are in a similar position than me. Maybe they were raised in the Christian church, but they don't really feel like they fit there anymore. There's a lot of other things that have influenced them over time, which have brought them away from that kind of fundamental teaching and understanding. For myself, it's been a long journey. Probably at least the last 15 years I've been struggling with it. And just the last few years, I've really kind of started reassembling a faith system. My first introduction video was kind of about systems of thought and the way in which systems of thoughts develop and influence us. And my second video was about kind of the evolution of religious ideas and how looking at a couple of examples of that challenged my own faith and challenged my own ways of understanding what I believed. And then my third video was my third video was a little bit looking at the history of the Bible and the history of the Christian church. My background is in biblical studies and theology. I have a master's in theology. And in my undergrad years, I spent a lot of time studying the Bible, learning Greek and stuff. And I learned all about how the canonization of the Bible worked and the history of that, and what books that used to exist in the Bible that no longer do, and just a lot of history there that really challenged what I thought about the Bible. And I think if people looked into that history themselves, kind of like I did, it would challenge them. Now, not everybody needs to be challenged, and that's completely fine. If you're unsatisfied and you are searching, then you need to find the answers. If you're happy where you are, stay where you are, okay? If where you are is fulfilling to you, then stay there. But if where you are is upsetting, if where you are is abusive, if where you are is detrimental, if it's bringing you to dark places, then you probably need to find a way to move on. That's what's happened to me. I've had to find a way to move on, and I've been doing that. And that's what these videos are about my own struggles and my own history to come to this place where I am. And especially as an artist and as a post-Christian living in America, it can be a challenge, you know. And sometimes you have to cut cold turkey and to say, I can no longer be with those people. I can no longer exist in that situation, and I need to just cut it off and not be. And those people, they don't understand that. They can't understand that you need to remove yourself from the situation because they can't see what you see because they're not there. And maybe some do, and maybe you'll be an example and you will help others find their own salvation. But if you're happy, be happy, you know. For me, I like the search. I like the exploration. I like the knowledge. I like the experience. I like the questions, and I like to find the answers. And sometimes the answers will come for a time, and I will set them aside and be happy with it. And then later the answer won't work anymore. I'll have to find a new answer. And it's a good thing to do. So in this one, I'm going to talk about faith and two things about faith. I'm going to make this really big. Faith is kind of a big issue. A couple things about faith. First of all, it's okay to let it go. You can go through a time, and maybe you've been struggling for a long time with your faith, with your church, with your religious beliefs. Maybe you've been struggling for a long time, and maybe you just need to walk away from all of it. And that's okay. Go off and do something else. Go explore the world. Just go bury your head in work. Go bury your head in a family. Go find something else to do for a time so you don't have to think about it. You don't have to agonize over it. And then allow it to percolate, and then maybe something else will come along that will help you, okay? And that's totally fine. You can let it go. You can let all of it go. You can let parts of it go. And that's hard to do. Because sometimes when you decide you need to let it go, people around you don't understand that, and they can't let it go, and they can't let you go. and they think you're losing your faith. But what you're really doing is transitioning from a faith that was given to you to a faith which you own yourself. And that's a hard thing to do. You have to own your own faith. You have to own it. You have to own it. And when you own your own faith, that means you've done the work. You've challenged yourself. You've pushed yourself. You've explored. And you've come to an understanding of what you believe. And usually that understanding is pretty unshakable. And if it's still shakeable, then it means you're still exploring. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with exploring. It's perfectly fine. You know, sometimes the answers don't come really quick. Sometimes the answers don't come at all. Sometimes you just have to live with the question. And it's okay to let it go. You know, and sometimes you just have to let components of it go. Maybe it's as simple as you belong to one church and you just need to move to a different church with slightly different teachings and understandings of God and relationship in the world. And maybe you're no longer a fundamentalist. Maybe you're more of an Episcopalian. Maybe you're not a Lutheran. Maybe you're, you know, more of a Presbyterian. I don't know. You know, maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe it's as hard as maybe you're no longer a Christian and you need to become a Buddhist. And that's okay, because that is where you're going to find your salvation. That is where you're going to find your answers. And that's what it's all about. When people are like, well, wait a minute, aren't you using that word salvation a little wrong? Does that have to do with Jesus and stuff? It has to do with you finding the divine, with you finding your life in the divine. That's what it has to do with. And if Christianity is not working for you, or your brand of Christianity is not working for you, you have to go find the divine. Wherever it takes you, wherever it leads you. That's the journey. That's the challenge. You have to go find that. So that brings us to the second part. Leaving it behind. It's okay to let it go. But then you have to own it. And it's okay to pick it up. I spelled Owen. Owen's my son's name. I wrote that without even thinking about it. I just said, oh. Owen's my son's name. That's funny. Owen, you're on my video now. Now you're forever remembered on Dad's screw up. That's all right. So this is the important thing. It's picking it back up. What does that mean? Well, there's a lot of different components to faith. There's like teaching, and then there's like worship, and then there's like devotion, and then there's like community and fellowship, and there's all these different aspects, right? And some of them you like for a time, and some of them you let go for a time. And so sometimes you got to grab a little bit of this one and a little bit of this one, and so you know you may have you know, right here you got your teaching, and right here you got some fellowship, and right here you got some worship, and over here you got a little bit of community service, and you're like, you know what, this one right here is not working for me, I'm gonna have to cut this one out, but the other three are good, so I'm gonna find a replacement for that. Or maybe it's not that at all. Maybe it's all you had to walk away from all of it, and you just needed a break, and you're like, I need a break, I'm done, and you just leave, you know, and you just spend your Sundays enjoying Sunday, just doing whatever you want to do, and have no obligations and no commitments, and just you're free, right? And then maybe a decade later, you're like, I miss something. What is it that I miss in my life? You know what? I miss worship. I'm just going to start attending a church, no involvement at all, and just sit down and just worship God. Or maybe I'm just going to go buy some worship CDs. Or maybe I'm just going to find a mantra that works for me. Or maybe I'm going to find, you know, some meditation that works for me. Maybe it's not going to be Christian at all. Maybe it's going to be completely something different. Maybe I'm going to read the Vedas. Maybe I'm going to, I don't know, I'm going to go out and dance. I'm just going to go move my body and dance and put on some great music and dance. And that's going to be my worship. Because I need that. I need that connection, you know. And so it's hard to say what that connection is going to be. But you got to start reassembling this faith system. These ideas, and you start pulling them from here and there, you know, and you start, this works for me, 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 because all of that brings you healing, and all of that brings you health, all that brings you insight and enlightenment, all that brings you goodness and faith, and all of these things bring you to the divine. And that's what it's about, you know. And if things are not bringing you to the divine, then they need to be cut off and removed. And people are like, well, this sounds like it's just self-serving and self-seeking, and you're not, you know, what about giving to others and stuff? Well, sure, there is absolutely that component to it. But until you love yourself, you can't love others. All you're going to do is serve others in a very, very meaningless way, because you're going to be serving out of obligation. You're going to be serving out of a sense of not selflessness, but of a sense of being lost. And you can't serve others when you're lost yourself. It's just, you really have to do that work here. And you can do a dual work. You can be serving others and yourself. But if you're just lost in serving others, you're not finding your salvation. You're not bringing healing to anybody, really. You're just lost. And so once you recommit to yourself and you start serving yourself and you start bringing yourself up, you see, that's not you, that's the Spirit working. And that's what's so beautiful about it is the Spirit will start bringing you things. You know, look, here's a little book for you to read that's going to be helpful to you. Oh, here's a friend that's going to be right there in your time of need, you know. Oh, here's a podcast to listen to. Oh, here's a video to watch. Oh, here's, you know, and the Spirit is dropping these little things in you, which then help move you along the path you need to be going along. And as you start to tune in to the divine, as you start to understand the divine, and you're able to pick up these things that work for you, you're going to start to see how they all work together and tie in together to your own best interest and to your own self, you know. And then you're able to give to others, and you're able to pass that book along to someone. The Spirit's going to be like, hey, remember that book you read last year that you just really was profound? This person could use it. Why don't you pass it on? Oh yeah, here you go. Look at this person, they're down and out, you know. They need a couple bags of groceries to get through the weekend with their kids. Remember when you were like that? Okay, hey, well, I'm gonna buy those groceries for you, you know. Now you're giving, now you're helping others. And you're doing it out of, not because you're lost and you don't feel like there's anything else to do, you're doing it because you're listening to the divine. And you've picked up all these little things, right? And you're listening to the divine again. So you have to be okay with letting things go and dropping them that aren't working for you, and then picking them up later or picking up something different. And this was a struggle for me because I've been taught my whole life that this is the way, this is what you believe, this is why you believe it, and if you believe anything else, you're wrong and you're going to hell. And hell's a bad place, you don't want to go there. And when each one of those things was challenged through my life, and I walked away with a different understanding of each one of those things, I was free, to really, really free. Because those things are all human. Those things are all creations of systematic thinking here and now, or actually then and there. And here and now, I exist in a different place. And now I'm free to really be with the divine and communing with the divine and understanding the divine and allowing the divine conduit through me to help others, and at the same time receiving from the divine in so many different ways, you know. And it's amazing when you start to really tap into that, and when you really start to see that and understand it. And it's challenging because you want to, like, so I stopped reading my Bible for probably 5 years, and then I picked it up again. And I shouldn't say I stopped, because I never really stopped. I would peruse it, but not diligently. You know, I pick it up on occasion, but then I picked it up and really started getting back into it. And I wanted to revert to these old ways of thinking that didn't work for me. These old ways of existing that didn't work for me. And so it was a challenge to infuse new ideas into old things. And so here was my Bible, which, you know, is an old thing for me, which I find a lot of solace in. But it was bringing me back to these old ways of existing, which brought tension, which brought conflict, which brought a lot of shame and guilt, in the sense of like victim shame, you know. And I had to struggle through that. I had to work through that. And now when I approach the Bible, I don't feel that way anymore, because I've dealt with those issues in my life. I don't feel victimized anymore. I don't by the church. And now I can approach the Bible and read it and find new meaning in it and find new comfort in it, because I don't have that layer on top of it telling me what to say or what to believe about it. Now I can just soak in it and allow it to really be meaningful to me, which is different, which is a challenge, which is hard, which is something that is definitely I think outside of my Christian upbringing. Before it was always just a tool to beat people. So I'm so much more open and so much more free and so much more understanding and so much more compassionate and so much more I feel connected, And when I don't feel connected is when I have a tendency to kind of revert and want to go back to these systems of thought that I used to have that just don't work. And now I realize that as I'm picking up this faith again, I am being energized by it because it's something that I find really powerful and really meaningful. And I know other people struggle with this. They have come out of a tradition that maybe they were just very dissatisfied with. But anytime they think about spirituality or faith, that's the only thing they can think of. And they're afraid if they take on anything else, anything different than what that existence was, they're going to be like, being led astray or being deceived or being, just being a traitor to God or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, you need to find what works for you to bring you closer to the divine. The divine as you know the divine and as you understand the divine. Not as somebody else tells you, but as you experience the divine. And I think my wife Heather is a great resource for that. So so that's kind of where I'm at. That's my history and that's where I'm at now. And a lot of this comes out in my artwork because I don't always do stuff like this. I do a lot of other stuff. Here, I'll show you one that I just finished. This is the one that I've just kind of been working on last couple weeks. Maybe it'll stay there. Different, abstract, but you can kind of definitely see nature themes in it. I needed these. I needed to be grounded, and this is very grounding. We've got these, it looks like, to me it's like a winter scene with some snow and some dead grass and some maybe pine trees or something, but at the same time, it's an abstract piece. There's nothing solid in it, so you can find what you need to find in it, or what you want to find in it, or what you see in it, what your mind creates in it. And that's what I love about abstracts, is everybody's going to see something different in it, and everybody's going to bring their own meaning to it, and their own meaning away from it. And I think faith is the same way. Faith, I can't tell anybody what to see here. They're going to see what they see, and faith is the same way. And we can't tell people what to believe. You have to discover that on your own. We can tell people what we believe, and why we believe it, and where that belief came from, and we can tell people about belief, but you have to believe it yourself, which means belief isn't just some abstract thing, it's something you stand on, something you're firm with, something that is grounding to you. And just like I needed this in my life when it came along, I needed to paint this series. This is the 4th in a series that I'm doing right now, and I needed to paint these ones to be grounded again, to get back into this understanding of nature and understanding of being grounded and being here now and not being off somewhere else, which my series is before that were really just kind of off somewhere else, but to come back to here and now. So I hope this was helpful to anybody. Certainly I'm open to dialogue, I'm open to questions. So thank you all for joining me on this journey. My journey is going to continue on, and hopefully yours does as well. And hopefully you find the peace you're looking for, and you find your own way into the divine and your own understanding of what that means. Have a great journey. Thank you.